My recent video about sleeping customs in the Middle Ages, one thing I mentioned in this video was the fact that sleeping was often communal in the Middle Ages. People would sleep together either in a very large room or in a large communal bed of some sort, especially families. And one thing that a few people were saying in the comments was, oh, well, that must have been really gross because, back in the Middle Ages, nobody bathed. One reply to one of these comments was particularly amusing. Somebody said, well, back in the Middle Ages, women only bathed once in their entire life, and that was on their wedding night, so they wouldn't be so gross for their new husband. So imagine being sensible enough to recognize that it might be a good idea to bathe before your wedding, but not being able to figure out that you might have other times in your life when you'd want to bathe. I really think that when people are making these comments and they're repeating these age-old myths about the Middle Ages, they're not reflecting on them. They're not reflecting on the rationality. People in the Middle Ages, they were human beings. They were like us in many ways. They liked food, they liked sex, they liked to have enough money, and they liked to be clean, and they liked to have things clean around them. Frequently, the only women who were allowed to accompany a military expedition were washerwomen. This is, of course, because a commander wanted to reduce the number of people in a military force who would be a liability, but washerwomen, they were a necessity, because even out on campaign, you wanted things to be clean. Bathing was routine in the Middle Ages. This idea that people only bathed once a year or twice a year or something, no. The average was anywhere from daily to weekly. Some medical texts recommend bathing infants 3 times a day. The soothing and cleansing properties of warm water were emphasized in medical texts as well. Regular bathing was practiced by people at all levels of society. It was not just aristocrats. Peasants also bathed regularly. Bathing was not as simple for people in the Middle Ages as it is for us today. The water had to be transported. It had to be heated over an open flame. Because of this, many peasant families bathed together. They bathed communally. People were far less prudish than we imagine in the Middle Ages. Often you hear this myth that bathing was only common in the East. But no, bathing was common all through the Middle Ages in the Latin West, in the Christian West. Public bathing facilities were found in cities throughout the Latin West, all through the Middle Ages. Often they were built in conjunction with public ovens. So these large ovens where people could come from throughout the city and bake their bread. Because of the heat generated from these ovens, this was used for public bathing facilities. Now, some of these bathing facilities had been in operation since the Roman times, but as early as the 8th century, new public bathing facilities, hot bathing facilities, were being built all throughout cities in the medieval Latin West. Public bathing facilities and saunas were commonplace in France, Germany, Italy, and other locations. Records indicate that by the 13th century, there were 26 public baths in Paris. And by the 14th century, London had 18. These were small cities compared to what we're used to today. They had tens of thousands of inhabitants. Given the size of medieval cities, these are large numbers of bathing facilities. Specific days were designated when men or women could visit these public bathing facilities, and there were laws throughout these cities that banned prostitution. So this was a risk, obviously, at a public bath, and it was banned. You could not practice prostitution at these facilities. So just to get back to the original comment that inspired this video, yes, I'm sure that medieval brides bathed for their wedding night, and in fact, they bathed far more often than that. They bathed throughout their lives. So let's just dispel this myth that people in the Middle Ages did not bathe. They bathed often. They took bathing seriously. Medieval people were, in fact, very sensitive to cleanliness. They associated filth with disease, especially bad smells for them were an indication of disease, so they did not want to stink. So yes, people in the Middle Ages bathed, and very regularly. My friend Helena Schroeder just finished an excellent historical fiction. This is called The Emperor Strikes Back. It deals with the civil war between Emperor Frederick II and the Crusader states. Really, really good book. I just finished it. It's great. I hope you guys will pick up a copy. Also, don't forget to get my band Roman Lions' new album, Lit by the Sky. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. I will talk to you soon.